Today we're making Turkish Borek, a recipe that is near and dear to my heart. Now, I can almost hear you say, that looks good, but what is Borek? I know it sounds a bit different, but essentially Borek is a savory pastry, mostly served for breakfast and brunch and made by layering a very thin dough with an egg mixture and filling it with a variety of fillings. It comes in different shapes and forms, and the filling can be changed based on what you have on hand. I'll go into detail about the filling, but let's first talk about the dough. In Turkey, people use what we call yufka, a thin dough made up of flour, water, and salt. It is mostly sold in markets as fresh dough, specifically for making borek. I'll be honest, I never tried my hand in making it, but I know that it requires years of practice. The closest thing we have to yufka here in the US that you can find in pretty much every grocery store is phyllo dough, and that is what I'll be using to make my version of Turkish Borek recipe today. If you're not familiar, you can find phyllo dough in the frozen section of your grocery store. They come in different sizes, like sheets of dough, or in pre-cut like shells. For this recipe, we will be using the sheets version. Also, phyllo dough is sold in the same place where puff pastry sheets are sold. Be aware that those two things are different, so be sure to read the label as you're shopping for it. Since phyllo dough is sold in the freezer, I usually buy it a day before I want to make borek so I can have it thaw in the fridge overnight. When you're ready to make your borek, simply take it out of the fridge, remove it from its packaging, and let it sit on the counter as you're working on the rest of the ingredients. Though I have to mention, it is best to keep it in its packaging until you're ready to assemble so it won't dry out. Now, let's talk about the filling. In my version of borek, I'm going to use a very classic Mediterranean filling made with baby spinach and feta cheese. That combination is a great one to try because one, those ingredients are easy to find, and two, it comes together in minutes. So, to prepare the filling, heat a tablespoon of vegetable oil in a large skillet over medium heat. Add in a medium-sized chopped onion and cook, stirring frequently until it is softened. It takes about 5 minutes or so. Next, add in a pound of baby spinach leaves. I buy pre-washed spinach to save on time, but if you're washing it, make sure to run it through a salad spinner or let it dry before using it. Now, I know it looks like a lot of spinach, but if you've ever cooked spinach, you know that it will cook down to pretty much nothing. Give it a gentle stir, add in salt and pepper, and let it cook until it's lost most of its volume for about 5 minutes or so. Turn the heat off and let it cool for like 15 to 20 minutes. We don't need to cool to room temperature, but also you don't want it to be super hot. And before you ask, if you want to make it ahead, you can cook the spinach a day before and use it when you're ready to assemble your borek. The important thing to pay attention to when it comes to the filling is to make sure that it is not too wet. If you need to, you can always strain the juices using a colander. As the filling is cooling, let's make the egg mixture that we will use to brush the sheets. In a measuring cup, place 3 tablespoons of vegetable oil, half a cup of milk, 1 egg, 2 tablespoons of plain unsweetened yogurt, and salt and pepper. Now that all components of our recipe are ready, we can start assembling. As I mentioned earlier, borek comes in different sizes and shapes. I am making a very basic version using a baking sheet, which is perfect for beginners. Here I have a half baking sheet that I will line with a sheet of parchment paper. This is also a great time to go ahead and remove the phyllo dough from its packaging. I cover it with a kitchen towel to make sure it doesn't dry out, but once you get a hang of it and move faster, you don't need to worry about covering. It won't dry out that quickly. I also have the cooked spinach, crumbled feta cheese, and egg mixture ready. Start by lining a sheet of phyllo dough at the bottom of the baking sheet, letting it overhang on the sides. Continue until the whole bottom of the sheet pan is covered, using more dough as needed. Then lay a second layer, making sure that the sheet pan is fully covered with the dough. As you're lining, the phyllo sheets might tear. That's normal. Just do your best to use patches of the dough to cover the bottom as much as you can. Pour 2 to 3 tablespoons of the egg mixture over the sheets and distribute it evenly using a pastry brush. Repeat the same process, meaning 2 layers of dough and brushing of the egg mixture. Then lay 1 layer of phyllo dough again, covering the whole thing, and then distribute the filling evenly, starting with the cooked spinach, followed by the crumbled feta cheese. Continue with the same process of covering the pan with 2 layers of dough and brushing it with the egg mixture twice. Place 1 final phyllo dough on top and fold the overhanging dough onto itself. Brush it with 2 tablespoons of egg mixture, making sure it is evenly distributed. If you feel like some spots are dry, you can use more as you see fit. I think it's important to mention that if you skip 1 layer or if it's not perfectly covered, that is fine. Phyllo dough is pretty forgiving. At this point, you can bake it like it is, but I'll do what my mom used to do and slice it so that it will be easier to serve later. Also, if you have the time, I highly recommend covering it with stretch film and letting it sit in the fridge for a few hours. You can even let it sit overnight, which is great if you're planning to serve it for breakfast the next day. Also, this way the layers of phyllo have the time to absorb the liquid and be super moist. When ready to bake, preheat the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Brush each sliced burek generously with egg yolks and sprinkle them with a combination of sesame seeds and nigella seeds if you have some, which is a pretty traditional topping for savory baked goods in Turkish cuisine, but if you don't have any, that is totally fine. Bake it for about 30 to 35 minutes or until it is golden brown on top. Let it cool on a wire rack for 15 to 20 minutes and then slice it up. Now, before I let you go, a couple of things. 1, filling ideas. In terms of cooked vegetables, you can use potatoes or other sautéed green leafy vegetables like Swiss chard. In terms of cheese, you can also use shredded mozzarella, shredded cheddar, even Monterey Jack cheese. If you want to use meat as filling, you can sauté some ground meat or even sausage as well. When it comes to the filling, the important thing is to make sure that you're straining the juices as much as you can so your burek will not turn out to be soggy. Second, you can freeze burek before you bake it. I think I've done up to a month before. Just be sure to cover it tightly with stretch film and then even cover it with some aluminum foil to prevent freezer burn. Then a day before you're planning to bake it, let it thaw fully in the fridge and bake it as you would normally bake it. I know I covered a ton here, but I have more information on the blog about storing and reheating leftovers and some other helpful tips to help you as you try your hand at making burek. I'll include the link in the description below so that you can check those out and also print the recipe if you want. If you're a fan of Turkish cuisine, you might also like my video on how to make Turkish coffee. So if you have the time, give that one a watch as well. And if you end up making burek, be sure to take a picture and tag me on Instagram. It's always wonderful to see your creations. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time.